This is my new pattern called Dart Meat, which has some short rows. I don't know whether you can see it, but you can see here there's rows here, and then there's some rows that comes out like that. Can you see that? And it meets with that bit there. And on the other side, there are some short rows worked in the very easy lace pattern. This lace pattern is just knit 3 together, 4 yarn overs, and another triple decrease. So it's not difficult at all. But there are short rows here, here, and then here, which finishes, and then that carries on in the garter stitch. So for this pattern I recommend using the German short rows, which is my favourite way of working short rows since I learned this technique. So we're going to start with a knit row. So knit to where you're going to turn, and then you don't have to do anything. Just knit to where you're going to turn and then just turn. Now I'm going to show you how to do it, whether you do the Norwegian purl, the regular Continental purl, or the English purl. So I'm going to show you the Norwegian purl first, because that's how I knit. So with Norwegian purl, you want to have the yarn at the front, slip the stitch, first stitch purlwise, and then instead of just letting the yarn slip to the back, you want to pull the yarn over the right hand needle. And you can see you pulling up the stitch from below. So if I let that relax again, that's my stitch I've just slipped. That's the stitch below. So I'm going to take the yarn over the right hand needle, and then I'm going to pull down on it really hard. So you pull that stitch from below over the needle. Now, if you've got to keep quite a high tension on that. So if you're tempted to relax, just put your finger on that to help, and then you're going to purl to the end of the row. So even though you've got one slip stitch and one purl stitch, it actually looks like you've got 3 stitches there, because you can see you've got 3 loops. Okay, so that's the Norwegian purl. So let me show you how to do it if you do the regular Continental purl. Okay, so we've turned and we're going to purl. So the yarn's in front because we're going to purl. Keep the yarn in front, slip the stitch purlwise, and then instead of keeping the yarn there, you take it over the right hand needle like that, pull down really hard on it. If you need to, use that finger to hold it. You can see you've got those 2 strands over there. Take the yarn between the needles and then pull the next stitch. So again, it looks like you got 3 loops there. That's 1 stitch and that's the 2nd stitch. Okay, so English purl. So with English purl, you'll have the yarn in your right hand. Now I am not very good at English knitting, so please do excuse me. You keep the yarn at the front, slip the stitch purlwise, and then you're going to pull the yarn over the needle to the back. So you're pulling up that stitch like we do the other one. I'm just trying to get the camera to focus. And then you take the yarn between the needles to the front, because you're going to pull with the yarn in front. Now while you're doing this, it's very tempting to relax the working yarn, and then it'll slip back. So you need to keep quite tension on it, and just make sure that it's pulled nice and tight. So when you have pulled the next stitch, you've got the slip stitch, which is looks like 2 loops, and then you've got the purl stitch. So I'm going to carry on purling the way I normally do Norwegian purl, because I find that easier. So we're now going to purl a few stitches. We're going to purl to nearly the end of the row, and then we're going to turn again. Okay, so let's turn here. So I purled to where I'm going to turn, and then I don't need to do anything, I just turn. Now I've got a knit row, so again I need to take the yarn to the front to slip the stitch. Again, I'm going to show the Continental way and then the English way. Now instead of actually physically taking the yarn to the front, what I tend to do is I tend to just put the needle under the working yarn, and then I put my finger on there so that it's actually in front of the yarn, in front of the needle, sorry. Then I slip the stitch purlwise, and then I just pull that over, pull that back, so you're pulling up that stitch from below. So let's do that again. So hold the yarn in the front, slip the stitch purlwise, So I got one stitch there, and then I'm going to take the yarn up over the right hand needle and then pull. Okay, and then you knit the next stitch. So again, you've got, that's your slip stitch, which looks like 2 loops, and that's your next knit stitch. So let me just show you how to do it the English way. Oops. Okay, so the English way, you got the yarn in your right hand, take your yarn to the front, slip the stitch purlwise, and then pull the yarn over the needle and down to the back. Now again, you need to keep tension on it, because you don't want it to slide back again. You want those 2 legs from the stitch below across the needle, and especially as you go into the next stitch, just keep the tension on that needle while you do the next knit stitch. So you got 2 loops there for the first stitch and then 1 for the second stitch. So I'm now going to just knit to a few stitches before my last turn, and I'm going to do 1 more on each side. Okay, so we'll do 4 stitches before my last turn. So how do you know where your last turn was? Well, you should be able to see that there should be a slightly bigger gap where you turned. So you can see that if I spread them out, there's a slightly bigger gap there. And then if I look closely at that stitch, see if I can get the camera to focus a bit better. If I look closely at that stitch, I can see that I've got sort of like a weird double stitch here. Can you see that here? And then, so that's my slip stitch there, those 2 strands, and then I've stopped 4 stitches before that. Okay, so again, I just turn it. So I'm now on the wrong side row, I'm now on the purl row. So I'm going to hold the yarn in front, whether you knit with the yarn in your left or your right hand, hold the yarn in front, slip the stitch purlwise, and then instead of just letting the yarn slip to the back or holding at the front to pull the next stitch, you're going to take it over the right hand needle and pull back. So if you do it the English way, just take it over the right hand needle and pull it. Pull it really hard. I tend to sort of, when I teach this in the class, I tend to say yank it. Okay, and then if you purl with the yarn at the back, you just purl. If you purl with the yarn at the front, you take the yarn to the front and carry on purling. So I'm going to keep the yarn at the back. Make sure you keep tension on that yarn, and after you've done that first stitch, just pull it tight. So you got that funny double stitch there, and then we're going to purl to 4 stitches before the last side. So that's my, so you can see here I've got that gap there. That's my sort of funny double stitch, 1, 2, 3, and I've gone the 1 too far. Okay, so that's my double stitch. Oh, that's my double stitch there, 2, 4. Okay, so I'm just going to turn, nothing else. I'm going to slip the next stitch, so I take the needle under the working yarn and into that stitch, purlwise. That's the same as taking the yarn to the front, or I can actually take the yarn to the front, hold it in front of the needle, and then take the needle in. So whether you hold the yarn in the left or the right hand, take the yarn over and then just pull the yarn to the back. So don't let the yarn go between the needles to the back. Make sure it goes over the right hand needle and then pull it so you get that funny double stitch. And then keep the tension on it while you knit the first few stitches. So we're going to knit just a couple of stitches and now we're back. So that's our first. So you can see when you get to that, you probably think, oh, what have I done wrong? That looks weird. So all you need to do now, when you're going to work back across your short rows, you just knit into those 2 loops as 1 stitch. So you just basically knit it as 1 stitch, and then we're going to carry on till the next one. Again, you got that funny double stitch and you just knit into that double stitch, and then we're just going to knit to the end of the row, and then we'll go back again. Depending on what you're doing, you may knit or purl a few stitches, then do a short row turn, and then knit back to the beginning of the row. Or you may knit part way across the row and then do another turn. It just depends on where your short rows are for. It doesn't matter. You may knit to a certain point, turn, and then next row knit X number of stitches and turn before the last turn or past the last turn. It doesn't matter. It's exactly the same way. You've just got to do whatever the pattern tells you to do. So now I come to my first turn on this row. So I got this on the wrong side row. So I got this weird double stitch, This looks like I've done something wrong. So again, when you pull with the yarn at the front or the back or the English purl, you just pull that stitch as one. Oh, and then we're going to just pull to the next one. Okay, so that's my last funny double stitch. So I just pull that as one stitch, and then I'll just pull to the end of the row. So if you're working in garter stitch, you basically just following the instructions for a knit row. So if you're working garter stitch where you knit every row, you're just following the instructions for a knit row. If you have any questions, please go to the blog post that accompanies this video and ask any questions there, or you can ask below this video and I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in the dart meat shawl, I will put the link below this video, and the information is also in the blog post, which I'll also link below this video. Thank you for watching.